Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're looking at one of the absolute wildest paradoxes in financial history. Imagine launching a product, right? And it gets openly mocked by literally everyone in your industry. I mean, by every traditional metric, it was one of the worst product launches Wall Street had ever seen. But here's the crazy part. That exact same spectacular failure ended up completely revolutionizing global investing. It quietly became one of the most recommended and successful financial strategies on the planet. So how on earth does a massive disaster turn into a multi-trillion-dollar revolution? Well, buckle up, because the story of John Bogle's incredible failure and the birth of the index fund is going to totally change how you view the stock market. Okay, let's dive into this, because this number, $11 million, is exactly where our story kicks off. Picture this. It's 1976. John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, has this brand new, revolutionary idea for an investment fund. He takes it to market, and he's hoping to raise, maybe 50 to 150 million bucks for the launch. He had big ambitions for sure. But when the dust finally settled, he'd raised a grand total of just over $11 million. Now, to put that into perspective, in the world of high finance, $11 million is practically a rounding error. Bogle himself actually looked back on this exact moment later and called it an abject failure. He threw this massive launch party, and practically nobody showed up. But it wasn't just that investors didn't buy in. It was the intense, almost visceral reaction from professional fund managers. They didn't just ignore Bogle's idea, they actively ridiculed it. His competitors aggressively nicknamed the fund Bogle's Folly. Some guys even went as far as calling the whole concept un-American. Literally un-American. Why? Well, because Bogle's central idea was to stop trying to pick winning stocks. You see, the entire Wall Street ecosystem was built on this glamorous promise that smart, highly paid analysts could outsmart the market and pick the next big winner. Bogle essentially walked into a casino and told everyone the games were rigged, so they should just buy a piece of the building instead. To the professionals, it was completely insulting. And when you look at the underdog journey of the first index investment trust, which launched in August of '76, it really is a masterclass in patience. Remember, this was the very first index fund built for everyday investors. After that totally dismal $11 million first year, it didn't just magically bounce back overnight. Not at all. It took years of just grinding along before the fund finally managed to cross the $100 million mark in assets. It was a slow, grueling climb against a massive tidal wave of industry skepticism. But Bogle stuck with it. Why? Because he deeply believed in the undeniable mathematical reality of what he was offering. So to really understand why this completely mocked idea eventually won out, we have to look at the mechanics. What actually is an index? At its core, a market index is incredibly simple. It's just a list. That's it. A list of stocks grouped together to represent a specific slice of the market. The most famous example, of course, is the S&P 500, which is just an index made up of 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the US. So an index fund simply buys the stocks on that list and then just holds them. It's not sitting there trying to guess if one tech company is going to beat another one next quarter. It just buys the whole basket. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute elegance of passive investing. Mechanically speaking, most of these stock index funds are what's called market cap weighted. All that really means is you buy the entire basket, but you give larger slices of your money to the bigger companies. So if you own a share of an S&P 500 index fund, you own a tiny sliver of all 500 companies. But heavyweights like Apple, Microsoft, or Nvidia take up a noticeably larger portion of your investment than whoever is sitting way down at number 499. And the absolute best part, it automatically rebalances. If a company grows, the fund adjusts. If a company shrinks or just drops off the list entirely, the fund adjusts. There's no human managers sitting at a mahogany desk agonizing over these judgment calls. Now, let's fast forward a bit to the 2025 reality check and see how this all builds into the modern day. Because this is exactly where Bogle goes from being the laughingstock of Wall Street to the smartest guy in the room. We now have decades of hard data comparing these passive, automated index funds against the brightest, highest-paid, active stock pickers in the financial world. We're talking about professionals managing billions of dollars, armed with supercomputers, massive research teams, you name it. And the reality check? It is completely stunning. When pitted against a fund that literally does no stock picking at all, Wall Street usually loses. Just take a look at these numbers from the SPIVA scorecard, which tracks active fund performance against benchmark indexes. In a single recent year, roughly 79% of actively managed large-cap U.S. stock funds actually failed to beat the S&P 500. Think about that. That is nearly 8 out of 10 professionals losing to a passive list. But man, it gets so much worse for the experts. When you stretch that timeline out over 20 years, an unbelievable 93% of active large-cap fund managers failed to beat the index. 93%. Over a 15-year period across all 22 major fund categories, there was not a single category where the majority of active managers came out ahead. Consistently beating the market year after year isn't just hard. Statistically, it's pretty much impossible.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the secret weapon behind that outperformance. And it's almost painfully boring: fees. Because an index fund isn't paying massive salaries to an army of analysts or some star manager to actively trade, its operating costs are incredibly low. Today, many popular S&P 500 index funds charge annual fees of around 0.03% to 0.04%. Actively managed funds, by comparison, often charge anywhere from 0.5% to 1% or even more. When you strip away all the fancy marketing, the core mathematical argument for indexing is simply that you're starting from a much lower cost basis every single year.
We all know that compounding interest is like the eighth wonder of the world when it's working for your returns, right? Well, fees compound against you in the exact same way. That tiny difference between a 0.03% fee and a 1% fee sounds completely harmless. I mean, it's less than 1%. But let's say you invest $100,000 and just let it sit for 30 years. That tiny sounding 1% fee will realistically drain tens of thousands of dollars from your final portfolio compared to the low-cost index fund. And by the way, that happens even before we account for whether the active fund manager actually managed to beat the market or not. Indexing just guarantees you keep way more of your own money. Another huge advantage here is instant diversification. Index fund is really just a broad category. You can buy the S&P 500, sure, but you can also buy a total U.S. stock market fund, which gives you exposure to thousands of large, mid, and small companies. You can buy international stock indexes or even bond index funds. Buying a single share gives you partial ownership in thousands of companies across every single sector of the economy: tech, healthcare, retail, the whole shebang. If one individual company goes bankrupt or gets caught in some massive scandal, your portfolio doesn't get wiped out. You are dramatically reducing the damage that any single point of failure can cause. But let's look at the full picture and bring this back down to earth for a second. Index funds are amazing, but they aren't magic, and they certainly aren't without risk. First off, if the entire market drops, your fund drops right along with it. There is no manager hitting the emergency brake to move your money to cash. You have to accept the bad years with the good. Second, there's concentration risk. Because they're market cap weighted, if a few giant tech companies swell up to become a massive portion of the index, your performance becomes heavily tied to just those few companies. And finally, always remember this: a historical average return of around 10% is just history. It guarantees absolutely nothing about what the market's going to do tomorrow. So, the crucial point is how you actually put all of this into action. The strategy that transformed an $11 million failure into a multi-trillion-dollar powerhouse relies on three simple pillars: broad ownership, low costs, and patience. Honestly, the practical application is almost anticlimactic. You open a brokerage account, you choose a low-cost, broad market index fund, and you contribute to it consistently over time, completely ignoring what the market happens to be doing in any given week. You don't have to predict the future. You don't have to find the next hot stock. You just step back and let the relentless math of the global economy do the heavy lifting for you. It really is incredible to think that almost 50 years ago, John Bogle's massive launch was written off as a complete and utter joke. But today, the data proves it was one of the greatest financial innovations of our time. Which leaves us with a very humbling thought to walk away with. If 93% of highly trained, incredibly well-funded Wall Street professionals ultimately failed to beat the index over a 20-year period, what are the realistic odds that you, picking stocks in your spare time, are going to do it? Let that sink in and maybe take another look at your own portfolio. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.